So hey, obviously if you're watching this, you're wanting to know how to put together models. Today we're using a 1:28 scale Space Marine model from the Warhammer 40k universe. This is particularly for a painting competition, so our options for more advanced conversions and modelling is going to be a little bit limited, but this will serve you as a baseline for how to put together a multi-part miniature. Now, with miniatures with multiple parts, the first thing you're going to want to do is cut them off the sprue, which is the tray in which all the parts came. Now, we were given these parts by the people giving out the competition, so they were already cut off for us. But there are still some things that we're going to want to do. The first thing you'll want to do is you'll want to clean off the flash or the mold lines from the model. See, if you look here, you'll see a faint line running down the length of this guy's arm, and on the other side as well. This is where the mold has been put together. The plastic has been pumped through, and enough has been put through as it has come through the mold. Now this is a good thing because it means that your miniatures aren't going to have bits missing. But what it does mean is we're going to have a bit of cleanup before we can make a really good looking model. Now here's how I do it. You can do it a lot of ways. Some people use sandpaper. What I tend to do is I tend to get a craft knife and you'll just drag it along ever so slowly and cut off the flash, like so. The thing about using a craft knife is you can get into edges a lot easier. It's a bit more dangerous on your fingers. I've put band-aids on my fingers every so often, but if you're careful enough and if you're slow enough, you can generally get it very well. Now I'll hold it a little bit closer so you can see how it's happening, like so. Draw it slowly and deliberately across the model. That will, one last bit. And that'll do us for the most part. The rest I'd done earlier. So at this point we're going to look at what sort of glues we're going to use to put it together. We have on hand some plastic glue. Now this stuff will melt the plastic together for a really strong fit. At home I have super glue, which is a lot faster drying, which tends to break apart more easily, which is useful if you want to experiment with posing. Just to put a drop of super glue on there, put it together for a bit, see if it works. If not, break it apart and do it again. This stuff is useful for what we're after because all we're doing is we're just doing a line infantryman. We don't need to do anything fancy. We're just putting him together. So the first thing we're going to want to do is, for the Space Marine, we're going to put his body together. We have two bits here, a back plate and a front plate of his torso armor. What we're going to want to do is we're going to want to drop plastic glue along the length as soon as it comes out. Yep, along of the model. It tends to come out pretty quickly, but it's slow at first, but it comes out pretty quickly after. So you'll have to act fast, and you have to be really quick to make sure that you don't get it all over your fingers and all over the model, because it will melt the details of the model if you're not careful. As you can see, we're holding it together for a bit, and it's fitting really nicely. Another thing we're going to want to do is this guy has a backpack. Now there's a little bit of a round nodule thing at the back here, and a round hole on the backpack. This is where we're putting it. It looks a bit like a jetpack, even though it's not. These things they must be respirators. So it'll fit together like that. Another tip is always dry fit your components before putting it together to see if it'll fit well and to see if you'll like the fit. Otherwise, you run the risk of having bits that don't exactly fit all that well, and that makes it harder in the long run, or you'll be stuck with a pose that you might not appreciate all that much. So we're just going to drop a little bit more plastic glue in here now. Now the good thing about plastic glue too is it won't melt and clog up the dispenser on you. The problem I've had with super glue in the past is that often I'll come back to a tube of super glue that has been completely dried solid because some bit has been left open for whatever reason. The lid might not dry all that well, and yeah, air gets into it. You don't have that problem with plastic glue. Plastic glue will, on average, last you a lot longer than super glue will. Now see, that guy's going to stay like that. We're just going to put him to the side. We have arms. We've got two arms. One that is holding, it has a holding hand. One that has no hand. This one that has no hand, we're going to fit with the bolt gun eventually. We'll get to that a little bit later, but just for now it helps to know where we're at. These arms also have shoulder plates. I seem to have dropped it one moment. Have shoulder plates. Now you'll notice that there is a little bullet hanging off the shoulder plate, bolt round it's called in universe lore. Now when you're modeling your miniature, you want to achieve as dynamic a pose as you possibly can. So you want to make sure that these shoulder plates are a bit like that. If you can see, the bullet's on a bit of an angle, as if to express the fact that he's in the middle of movement. So what we're going to do is we're going to glue the shoulder pads onto the arm. We're just going to drop a bit of glue in the middle here, and we're going to fit this guy in here, like so. The fit in these isn't as amazing, but that's okay. And we'll do the same for the other one, as you can see. Drop it in the middle and around the sides. The other advantage of pre-fitting your miniatures is that you can figure out where the most contact surface is. That way you're not going to waste glue, and you're also going to figure out where to put it for maximum bondage. So we have two arms, a body, legs, and a head, and a bolt gun. Here's where the posing bit starts, and here's where personally I have the most fun. I very much enjoy converting my miniatures, though you can. This guy's a line infantry, so he doesn't get it as much. But if you're working with command infantry, you can generally mix and match pieces from sets and create more dynamic poses. Because this guy has a lot less parts and variety, we're going to want to experiment with poses a little bit. Now, I'm going to try with the plastic glue something I mentioned earlier, which is experimenting with poses. So I'll go on this guy. I'm going to put the barest minimum of glue there, just in case I don't like it. And I'm going to, as you can see, glue him so that his body is fairly upright and straight on to the legs, as you can see. This gives us a good base to work from, and it's a fairly dynamic pose on the legs. Now that we've got a good solid thing there, we can start to figure out how exactly we want him to look. Do we want him to have a rested pose? Or do we want him to look like he's in the middle of firing? Subtle differences in how you attach the legs can make all the difference in the atmosphere of the model and the story that you're trying to tell with it. If you have, say, a guy with a pistol and chainsword, you could say pose him holding out the pistol and chainsword at the side. Obviously he's in the middle of firing. Or you could have him with the chainsword at the ready, as if he's about to engage the enemy. Head positioning also makes a big difference in how how you're expressing what your model is doing. For instance, if our good mate is firing over there, we want him to look like it. However, if you've got him turned another way and pistol at rest, you're expressing that he's on guard, or that he's keeping a watch out for, say, his heavy weapon squad crew member. For the moment, we're going to look for a more dynamic phase. So we're going to attach his arms as if he's firing at the enemy, and we're going to turn his head so that he's looking in the same direction. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to attach the right arm. Now I'm going to attach it fairly high up, and while it's drying, I'm quickly going to check that it's in line with what I'm trying to do, which it is.